over a new leaf. And like a new year, fresh start. I'm totally jazzed. So we'll do some year-end stuff today and our regular Feel Good Friday stuff. Of course, most people are wearing red. I actually am wearing black and gold because it's Mizzou. And Mark is frustrated with me.
Just see if you can see. I've got the Mizzou shirt on underneath. I have Mizzou stuff in the car. I mean, here I go. I make this huge sacrifice to wear red today.
I couldn't not wear red, so I do have my little red bracelet on today as well.
I am also wearing red under my gray hoodie. It was a little chilly.
It was. So yes, if you have not peeked outside, you might be caught by surprise, like some of us were this morning.
I felt like a news reporter this morning, or like a news anchor reporting live from the scene out on the roads. I texted Stephanie this morning, said, hey, by the way, I was caught off guard by how much snow was on the ground this morning, so just passing that along.
And I would have been horribly caught off guard, and Hannah knows I like to kind of cut it close with my timing, and I don't give myself a lot of extra time. Brian, I mean, just quickly, what should people know?
And I want to remind everyone, I told everybody 24 hours ago, 2 days in a row, and I was spot on with
No one likes an I told you so, Brian.
I'm gonna give it in this situation, but I did quote the Weather Service, so and the numbers were pretty similar to what we were expecting. I do think that Hannah's correct on this, that we're talking about an inch to inch and a half. We have one report, Bethel, which is just outside the listening area, northeast Missouri, in Shelby County. We go up into certainly the 93.9, the Eagle listening area, Monroe. They had 2.8 inches. Wow. Columbia, 1 inch officially to an inch and a half. I talked to Jared Maples on the phone this morning, St. Louis meteorologist, National Weather Service. I know in my home in Columbia, it was a little bit more than that on my car, probably closer to 2. And then Jefferson City, officially, they're reporting 1.25 inches. The good news is that's primarily on cars, elevated areas, and the crews did a really nice job overnight plowing. But for sure, and this is going to continue all morning, this on and off. So you definitely expect the snow to continue, widespread.
Driving up from Jeff City, it's like a blizzard out there. The snow is coming so hard, particularly in Jeff City, but it's not sticking on the roads.
Correct.
So the roads themselves, but I mean, I had a good 2 inches of snow on the bushes and trees and things out in the yard this morning. It started last night by like 9 o'clock at night or so. The snow flurry started coming down.
Yes, and that was in Jefferson City. In Columbia, it was a little bit closer to 7:30, and they were predicting, I think in my story yesterday, 6 to 9. So it was a little slow coming down from Iowa. But by afternoon, it will be off of here, and then we'll finally get some dry time. But the roads are very wet. Temperatures are above freezing, but not by much.
In one way, I'm kind of excited because it was such a bizarre Christmas in that it was like 50 degrees on Christmas, and we're celebrating more Christmases this weekend. Like I know many people around mid-Missouri are, and so we kind of get a little extended white Christmas. So I like that, but it also at the same time makes me jealous for all the folks who I saw left for Dallas this week, including some of our friends here. I think we're going to be talking with Fred Parry, who is at the Cotton Bowl at 8:10. We're also going to get to chat with Grant Norfleet. Now, he is the local, I want to say kid. He's not a kid. He is an adult.
He's a college student.
Yes, but he was recently elected as a national officer for FFA, which is a huge deal to have someone from Missouri on that board. So we're excited to chat with him at 7:10. We will also talk with regular guest Scott Faughn just after 7:30, kind of just a recap. I got to participate in one of his midweek updates yesterday, and we were talking kind of about the biggest stories on the state level from the past year. So we'll do that. But tonight, let's get a preview. I've got two people in the studio who love football. Now, Hannah loves football too. But what are we expecting? I know they said the line changed recently. And so, I mean, and I don't know enough about sports betting. Don't want to know about sports betting in that way.
Come on, Stephanie. I mean, sports betting is like your wheelhouse.
I want all my friends to be able to sports bet. I just have never personally participated because it's still illegal in Missouri, thanks to our state legislature. And I wish that was different, and I want to learn about it. But right now, it's not something we can do in Missouri. But tell us, Brian, what should we expect tonight?
Well, I'd be curious on Mark and Hannah's take too, but the basically the matchup is this: it's a top 10 matchup. Ohio State is number 7 in the country. They were marching down the field against Michigan in the Thanksgiving weekend game. Mark, I know, was watching the game and marching down, and Kyle McCord threw a pass. A lot of Ohio State fans thought maybe it was trapped. It was close. It looked like an interception. Either way, they lost a very tight game. That was their only loss. Had they won that, Georgia got beat, by the way, later that day. They would have been number 1 playing in the playoffs. So this is a very good football team. Mizzou is ranked at number 9. They have played each other a number of times over the years, 10-1-1. Mark will remember this, and I'm going to have this at the bottom of the hour on both stations. The only coach to ever beat Ohio State thus far, hopefully Elia does it tonight, Al Onofrio, 1976. And Mark and I remember it. It was one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen. A guy named Pete Woods, Harriet Woods' son, led the team on a 2-point conversion, and the town just went crazy that day in a positive way. And I remember all the people out at the airport to greet Al Onofrio when he came back.
Yeah, it's there's not a huge rivalry between them. We played a few times in the 80s.
Yes.
It didn't turn out well for us. Or maybe it was the 90s. I guess it was the 90s. We played a couple times.
98.
Yeah. Didn't turn out all that great for us. We did have, there's a lot of history between the two schools that overlap. Lots of folks that have a lot of overlap. I think the line thing's actually interesting because the line started with Ohio State being favored, depending on where you start at, by 6.5 or 7 points. And then Kyle McCord, who's the quarterback who led him to an 11-1 season, announced he's leaving. He's now going to Syracuse, I believe.
Yes.
And suddenly the line dropped almost overnight from that to about 2.5 to 3 point favorite for Ohio State. That seems to be where it's kind of held out at. It's interesting. Marvin Harrison Jr., who was the third vote getter in the Heisman this year, has said he's going to the NFL, but he traveled with the team. So there's a lot of speculation as to whether he will play or not. I frankly think he will not play, but that'll be interesting. And it's an opportunity for Mizzou to make a mark on the stage. If you want to play with the big boys in the SEC, you have to win these games. You can't lose them, and we have not done well in bowl games in the last few years.
You're spot on, Mark. I mean, everything you just said is spot on, and I did check Ohio State's website even this morning just before the show for my sportscast, and you're absolutely right. And they indicate there'll be several guys making game time decisions about players. They don't mention names, but we know Harrison is going to be one of those, and Devin Brown's going to get the call, the quarterback. Not a lot of people know him, but he's pretty good as a backup quarterback, quote unquote. So it should be a great game. Should be a lot of fun. ESPN TV, and then of course KWS is our sister station we're on right now, is going to be carrying the game. A couple of other Zimmer stations as well. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, Hannah, what time does pregame start tonight on KWOS?
Pregame starts at 5 o'clock.
Awesome. All right. Well, you said you checked their website. Have they said anything about how they're enjoying the desert? That's been my favorite story this week so far.
Mark, did you see that? You're looking a little confused.
No, as soon as it clicked after, I was like, that's right. Somebody said they went out to the Fiesta Bowl, didn't they? Or went out to Arizona, got out to Arizona for the desert. And Dallas is not exactly the desert.
No, it's not exactly. But
even in the least.
But a lot of fans will be there in Dallas, and just a great atmosphere tonight. And you're going to see a lot of guys tonight on both teams that will be playing on Sunday soon.
That game sold out
incredibly
quickly. My kids are actually going to it, and I've gone to bowl games before. I was shocked at the price tag for the tickets, and they didn't buy them through the third or fourth hand market. I mean, they were able to get actually the first run of tickets, and I couldn't believe how expensive tickets were for this bowl game. There'll be a large crowd there, and I think the Mizzou players are going to be motivated more perhaps than Ohio State. Ohio State comes off a disappointing end of the season. Mizzou has a lot ahead of them, so I think there should be an exciting game. It's certainly one that I definitely clear my calendar to watch, but I cleared that calendar the day they announced the game.
So. Should be fun. And it's a New Year's Six Bowl, too. Yeah. It is. Even though it's tonight, it is a New Year's Six Bowl. It's huge.
And it's the third time we've played in a Cotton Bowl in relatively recent history. When we had that season where we almost won the Big 12, we ended up playing Arkansas in it.
Yep.
The season we almost won the SEC, we ended up playing Oklahoma State in it, and then this year we get Ohio State.
Exactly. That's spot on.
All right. Well, I know I'm feeling good about the Mizzou game and excited to watch tonight. We are celebrating a Feel Good Friday, so text us at 573-874-9390 about what you are feeling good about. We put up a post earlier this week, too, about what's something that has made your life better in 2023, a product, a service, a new habit. And we said maybe instead of winners and losers this week, you guys have some really good ideas. You guys had a really good year. So you can get on our, you can text us or you can get on our Facebook page and chime in. We'll be doing that at 8:30. And did you see the recent Zimmer recap, Hannah? We had a really good year here at Zimmer.
I don't think I saw that.
It's on the socials, but we have had so many great things to be thankful for and had a really good year here at Zimmer. Some of our Zimmer cohorts won some huge awards, Mercury Awards, Marconi Awards, Broadcaster Association Awards, Gracie Awards. I mean, just these are national awards that this, Midmo station is bringing home, so that we brought home a lot of hardware this year. So very exciting. But then also, I think my favorite part of the recap always is the part where they talk about all of the work that Zimmer does for the community. And I just want to give a shout out to the family because, of course, we couldn't do any of that without your help. This year, Children's Miracle Network had a record-breaking year, raising more than $260,000, so huge there. And then for the Central Missouri Honor Flight, we, as a Wake Up family and as a Zimmer community and a Mid-Missouri community, raised $125,000. So definitely things to be feeling good about as we close out 2023. Now, something I don't feel very good about, Mark.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
I know. I really don't. Trump and yesterday, and we've got to get to the daily DC rundown. So
I'm not sure you said that in the order you wanted to say.
what did
That's
I say?
something I don't really feel good about, Trump.
Oh, well, yeah. No, I don't feel good about the state of Maine. And so we had bad news out of Colorado last week. We had bad news out of Maine yesterday. They are kicking Trump off the primary ballot, but we've got to talk about it's different than what Colorado did. And so that will be coming up next in your daily DC rundown. us into our daily DC rundown. Now, Colorado was different than Maine, and actually Trump is going to be on the primary ballot in Colorado, right, Mark? They've appealed.
Yeah, they've appealed.
And so it stayed. And I think the ballots get printed next week. So unless the Supreme Court does something really crazy, I mean, the moral of the story is he should probably be on the primary ballot.
They're going to the Supreme Court will have to do something with it.
Okay.
They don't have a choice.
Well, because there are many states. In fact, one website that's keeping a list says there are 10 other states still debating whether Trump will be eligible for their primary ballot. Now, our Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, has said he will appear on the ballot. Of course, we're doing caucusing this year and all that, but said we're not going to have any issues here. But what happened in Maine yesterday? Because it wasn't a court. It wasn't a Maine court. It was their Secretary of State.
Yeah, their Secretary of State issued a opinion, for lack of a better term, that Trump participated in insurrection, and therefore, under the 14th Amendment, he's not qualified to be on the ballot. And he's not on the ballot in Maine. Now I assume that they will immediately appeal that. I haven't seen that because it kind of came out late yesterday, whether there's been an appeal already filed, but for sure that's going to get appealed.
And we're already seeing responses from other states. Late last night, you said you saw something out of California.
California Secretary of State said Trump will appear on the ballot.
Nice.
Will not be removed off the ballot. So, the secretaries of states have a lot of power. We forget that's an important position in government. A Secretary of State can do a lot of things that affect elections, and one of those things is they get the first decision as who gets to be on the ballot, and then the courts get to make the final decision.
And for example, in Missouri, the secretary could find that you are ineligible to be on the ballot. There are like tax issues, residency issues. What other issues could the secretary say that you're not on the ballot?
Yeah, I mean, well, the secretary you don't know what power he has until you exercise the power. I know that sounds silly, but he could say, I don't think you're a Republican. You can't be on a Republican ballot. Now, a court will probably overturn that in the long run. But, it's a political position. And a lot of these folks, including in Maine, they're making purely partisan political decisions. And when you run your statewide elections office as a partisan office, you create questions as to the efficacy and the honesty of your system, no matter which side of the aisle you're on.
Well, and you likely just gave Trump a bump in the polls because people are going to be real angry about this.
Well, particularly since Nikki Haley managed to stub her toe pretty bad yesterday. So
anything Mark can do to take
she slowly starts rising in the polls. She finally looks like she's got it. She has to.
Just yesterday, we were talking about how she had a good soundbite that what did Randy say, make it easier to vote for her or not so hard to vote for her?
On the border, yes, she really came out strong on the border, but the Civil War soundbite was rough.
Yeah, and then she had to spend a whole day trying to walk back the Civil War soundbite, which, I listened to the walk back, and it's like, come on, just nobody will say I was wrong or, I'm sorry. She ended up saying, well, if you didn't understand and I wasn't clear enough, of course the Civil War was about slavery.
And then I saw someone throw DeSantis a softball and say, what would you have said? And that answer, he had that ready to go. It was a very good answer, but he had a little bit more time and was not caught off guard by that question. But at the same time, we got another debate coming up here on CNN. I think it's the 10th of January. And so they will face one another again. But Nikki Haley has had some major flubs, the social media thing, and she seems to always bounce back.
She runs in a different lane, being both on her politics are slightly different than everybody else's. And then she's the one woman on the stage. It makes a difference.
Well, and I think that speaks to her strength because this is not the first time that she stepped in it. So to be able to have these flubs, which for other people would essentially doom their campaign, and to be still have the momentum that she has, I think it speaks to the fact that a lot of people are behind Nikki.
I think it's two factors. There's a lot of people that don't want Trump, and they're searching for somebody to not be Donald Trump, and that's, I think, part of the biggest problem that they're suffering with.
Mark Ellinger.
Good morning, y'all.
And we want to let you know we have some big announcements coming up next week. One in particular we hope you will join us for. That is going to be, of course, we're celebrating the new year on Monday, but we hope you will join us in the 7 o'clock hour around 7:10 on Tuesday for a big announcement here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And
How's that for a radio tease?
There you go. Keep an eye on our Facebook page, our socials, all of that. And also, we want to remind you that you can catch tonight's Mizzou game with pregame starting at 5 o'clock on KWOS. Well, we talked a little bit before the break that we were going to talk about the OpenAI lawsuit. But first, there's this lawsuit here at home, and it's really got people. We talked a little bit to Senator O'Loughlin earlier this week, and she still seemed a little bit frustrated with her friends over in the House because it's got now there are two entities. It's not the actual House and the Senate. It is the campaign arms for the state House and the Senate. And they are on opposite sides in the courts over a redistricting case. Now, we're going to need to back up because not everyone follows redistricting as closely as you do, Mark. But this case went before Judge Beadham in Cole County.
Yep.
And
They tried the case. So this goes to the Senate maps, the 34 districts that are drawn in the Senate.
So, for example, that's very important here in Boone County because we know that the drawing of that map likely changes the outcome of our senator for many, many moons to come in that because we lost Callaway County. We will see Stephen Weber, who I've met and I actually think is a fairly reasonable person. I say that now. I will, but he agreed at some point he's going to come on the program. But certainly those maps have changed the way Boone County will elect a senator.
Yeah, sure. I mean, previously Boone County had Cooper County as its paired for the senatorial district. Now it's just Boone County by itself because of the population growth. So that will become likely. I mean, there's always miracles, but likely a Democrat.
Without a miracle, we're going to have Stephen Weber. Okay, so
there's 34 of these districts all around the state. Very few of them are one county districts. By and large, they're either split up into a couple of big counties, or mostly they're amalgamations of a whole bunch of counties.
Amalgamation.
We're getting a vocabulary lesson this morning.
It's too many syllables there. Should I
It's too early in the morning for all those syllables, Mark.
Okay, it's a bunch of counties smushed together.
Ooh, now you're talking my language. Smushed. Got it.
So the long of the short of it is the Democrats didn't like the way the districts were drawn. They filed a lawsuit challenging specifically two of them. One in the western part of Missouri that has Platte and Buchanan County. The other one in the eastern part of Missouri, which is entirely in St. Louis County and is probably more of a intra-Democratic Party split, a fight between Democrats than it really is anything else. And we talked about this before. Doing maps on a statewide basis is, it's like doing a puzzle. Because if you move certain pieces one way, you lose the ability to move other pieces other ways. So, it's all kind of interlocking. If you change a district, that generally means you have to change at least one other district to offset the change in the first district. And sometimes it means changing 4 or 5 or 6 districts to make it work. So they tried the case in Cole County Circuit Court. They had experts come in. It was a fairly long trial with expert testimony. The judge ruled the map that was drawn by the courts, which I think is ironic that the courts drew the map. The court's map was valid and would stand for this next cycle, which filing opens in February.
And now it's up on appeal.
And the Democrats appealed it pretty much at the last minute. They waited the longest time they could. I think their goal is to try to get an answer at the last minute and cut off the ability for future appeals to change the districts. They filed their appeal at the last minute. The interesting thing was, the Democrats lost, so they appealed. The state won, it appealed, or didn't appeal, it just defended its case. But the House Republican Campaign Committee, which is the Republicans' campaign arm, again, not the leadership, but it's functionally controlled by the leadership, filed a brief. We call it an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief supporting the Democrats in this case.
On the side of the Democrats. Now, the Senate campaign arm also filed a brief coming in support of the state, which is really on the side of, defending the position from the Democrats. But the House said, we're in for the Democrats. And the Senate is saying kind of two things. A, Like, why are you opposing us? And B, it's our map. So, like, why are you even stay in your lane?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And the brief that was filed by the Senate Republican Campaign Committee had some interesting language in it. It kind of calls out the House Republicans for saying, why are you interfering with this? This is our map. You don't really have a dog in the fight. And that this is, you're actually not challenging it because you think the map is wrong. You're challenging it because your campaign consultant, in other words, the person who runs HRCC, has clients that have a vested interest in different maps in certain parts of the state, which is interesting in light of the campaign consultant they're talking about, who I think is a really good guy and very, very sharp at this stuff, was the guy who actually, along with another friend of ours, Pat Thomas, they were kind of integral in getting the House map passed that didn't go to court because the commission was able to get that done. And now looks like he's leaving the House Republican Campaign Committee, although I think that was something that was in the works for quite some time.
I think so as well. Well, and I think the other thing that this, we can get really nerdy, Hannah, and talk about lawsuits all day, but having those two...
We're not already there?
We are.
Oh, no, we haven't even scratched the surface yet, Hannah. You really want to go there?
There's a lot more lawsuits, but I think, and in talking to Senator O'Loughlin, I think this is another layer on top of, as we approach the legislative session that is now just a week away, we talk about the tension in the Senate amongst the Republicans, but the tension oftentimes between the House and Senate can also blow things up and has in the past. And so having this tension right before we open the legislative session, I don't think is a good omen for the 2024 legislative session.
They weren't getting along all that well last year. I'm not sure this is going to make it any better at all.
I don't think so. Well, other lawsuits that are in the headlines outside of Missouri, we've got this OpenAI lawsuit, and I am completely obsessed now with ChatGPT. I wish I knew how to use it better, but it's fun. It's you just ask it weird questions, or I think it's helpful. And I know there are practical and real world applications. I haven't had time to figure those out yet, but it's very powerful.
Well, even just this week, we discovered a fun new AI tool. We're always learning more about AI, and they're always coming out with new things, and it's kind of fun.
Hannah and I, can I say what we did?
I don't know.
We were kind of pranking someone.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that. Yes, we can talk about that.
That's not even the fun
What's
that Hannah
the
thought
other
it
one
was.
that we were using it for? I can't even, when we wrote the email?
So, yes, I had to come up with a strategy plan to send to one of our bosses, and I didn't have a lot of time to
and
do
I said,
it.
put that question in ChatGPT and then see if, and so I think you got an email that says you need to have a plan, and then 5 minutes later you sent 3 pages of a plan. So clearly we got it from ChatGPT, and we were waiting to see if they could figure out I
did fess up to it pretty quickly, but it was funny.
We had a good time, but it can be very good, especially if you are you need brainstorming or you're stuck. But this lawsuit by the New York Times has the potential to take it all down, right? Mark's saying no.
No, I don't think so.
But I mean, it could be it could shape the future of AI in the United States.
I think the last thing you just said there's the most important thing we should keep in mind. It can only shape the future of AI in the United States. It will have no impact anywhere else in the world, including the biggest competitor we have for AI, which is China.
Yeah.
This will have zero impact on them. And I think what's going on here, and it's interesting, is AI only works because of the volume of data that you give AI.
The data set.
But it's the volume.
But the problem
it's
is
just max volume. You have to put as much possibly as you in because that's what makes it work. And
it still hallucinates.
And all these news outlets, one of the things they do is they generate constant content. That's all that, you look at a New York Times, they have their webpage up. It's just constant contact. So you just feed all that content into the AI, like they feed every other piece of data that they get from everything you do in your entire life is all fed into AI to come up with patterns and predictive analysis and machine learning.
So the New York Times, they've sued not only OpenAI, but also Microsoft, who has an AI component. But the real problem is how they get the data. And so essentially it's scraping or web crawling, pulling all of the data from the New York Times and the New York Times is saying, you can't do that. Now, the remedy is a really interesting, and you and I don't really practice copyright law, but that's where that kind of raised my eyebrows, because what the New York Times is asking is they're saying, hey, you got to stop training your models using our stuff. Quit using our stuff going forward. But then you also need to remove our content that you've already scraped from your data set. Now, this is a common remedy in copyright law, as I understand it, in that destruction of the
Offending property.
it would normally be a remedy that you could ask for. But how now with this data set and AI, kind of takes on a life of its own, would you just scrape out or pull out the offending New York Times work?
I think that's why the particular remedy is one that wouldn't work. So I think you're going to end up with perhaps some going forward process and probably a monetary settlement of some type or another. But I mean, this kind of is scraping the top layer here when you think about it. They've fed tens of thousands of novels into AI, and there's a lawsuit going on by several novelists that are suing to try to stop AI from consuming novels and potentially generating work off of it. And what the real issue, I think, is it's not that you're, and I know the Times has phrased this as you're bringing our data in. It's really what you're spitting out using the data. And it's that generative impact. So it's what
like
you all do when you use, ChatGPT and you ask it a question, and it scrapes through all this data that it's learned to give you an answer. That's generative output.
So it's like robot plagiarism is what you're saying. It's like stealing other people's work and then using it as your own. And actually, if you put it in ChatGPT and it pulled from somebody else's work, ChatGPT doesn't even tell you where it came from. So there's no ability to attribute or do any attribution as to where that, you wouldn't know that it was stolen from so-and-so's novel.
And I think that's the bigger issue that the Times is really concerned about. It's, that once they put things out in the free space, it's pretty hard for them to say people can't use it. Just the requirement is you can't take their stuff and then reissue it without attribution to them.
Well, and with AI, we've also had a lot of concerns from teachers at all levels of education with kids using ChatGPT to write maybe a research paper or a book report or things like that. And I was watching a TikTok this week of a college student whose professor accused her of having used ChatGPT to write her paper, and she swore up and down that she didn't, and the teacher was basically going to give her a 0. She ran it through some program that flagged it as a high probability of having been generated by AI, and the student didn't know what to do or how to prove that she did not use, ChatGPT to write her paper.
Yeah, how do you prove that negative? That's tough.
Yeah, and these predictive programs that teachers are using, and they've actually kind of gotten fairly popular in certain sectors. Those programs look for common errors that AI make, because it's not perfect yet. So they look for these kind of common errors that AI make, and that's what they're using to flag it.
Well, and there's been plagiarism checkers like that for several years now, but now they're running it through a plagiarism program and an AI detection program.
Maybe they need to run the Harvard president's thesis through that, just see how much plagiarism she's getting away with in this world.
It is a producer Hannah, and of course Brian Hauswirth. We will have John Marsh back on Tuesday. We will also be making a major announcement at 7:10 on Tuesday, so we hope you will join us, and we are wishing you a happy new year. Well, I just want to revisit our Christmas discussion because I caught a lot of grief that I wasn't going to wait to put my Christmas tree up, and we have got a lot of folks in the family who said you can put your tree up November 1, and I just wholeheartedly disagree. I want to celebrate Thanksgiving before we celebrate Christmas, but then I really want to know, when does your Christmas tree come down?
I don't know, Stephanie, when does your Christmas tree come down since you waited long to put it up?
I mean, I usually like to get it down before New Year's, actually.
Really?
Wow, talk
Yeah.
about Scroogey.
I know.
You put the tree up late, take the tree down early. Let's get rid of Christmas.
I usually have people over on New Year's, and so it just feels weird to be like celebrating another holiday and to still have your tree up.
But I feel like a Christmas tree for New Year's isn't that too big of a stretch.
Well, theoretically, you're supposed to keep it up for the 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah.
And the 12 days of Christmas are the 12 days starting with Christmas, not ending with Christmas.
It's like through January 7th.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
No.
And actually, I was just over in Germany visiting with some friends, and they put their tree up right before Christmas. They only do live trees. They put it up right before Christmas because they want to make sure that it's fresh through the 12 days of Christmas.
See,
And
I'm
there's
like
the real tradition.
I'm like a fresh start, New Year. I want all that Christmas stuff down by the New Year, really. But it's not going to happen for me this week.
But it's such a big job to, drag all the Christmas stuff out of the attic, set it all up, put the empty boxes away. Why not have it up for a while and enjoy it?
Because it's not Christmas. All right.
We'll also put it up early and enjoy it.
That's what I'm
You know,
saying.
you can get it one way or the other.
I was feeling very not hip yesterday because we are celebrating some additional Christmases, and my nephews are in town, and they are college age, slightly over college age, and all they wanted to talk to me about when I was talking, like, what's hot in the news. Apparently Kanye is back on Instagram, and it's a big deal because apparently he got kicked off, and he has just like gone off the deep end, in my opinion, and this hasn't really changed. He did apparently come back on Instagram to issue an apology, and so you can read about his apology. But the craziest thing he's done, I think, well, he's done a lot of crazy things. I don't think he is back in a good space. He's issued these new, he's sorry, but he's also selling new footwear. And it looks like...
And his Yeezy stuff is weird looking and it's super expensive.
Yeezy pods are now available via pre-order. Apparently they're like a foldable shoe, but it looks like a sock. Like a sock Ugg boot.
Those sound nice and supportive for your arches.
And I'm sure they're just cost an arm and a leg. Just everything he sells.
the show, of course, we are live on YouTube and Facebook this morning, and you can catch, I think Hannah made a reel of it, and it is posted.
I did. It needed to exist on the Wake Up timeline as its own post. It just had to happen.
It did. All right.
It's
well,
painful. Let's just be honest.
if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, you will see a new face in the studio. I want to introduce you to Grant Norfleet. Now, he just had a major accomplishment, was elected as a national FFA officer, and Hannah was telling me about it, and she was so amped up, and I don't think I fully appreciated.
You definitely did not, because I was disappointed you didn't share the hype.
What a huge deal this was. And she always gives me so much grief when Mark is in the studio and how we nerd out over lawyer stuff. And the two of you were just totally nerding out about all of the FFA stuff. Now, and Hannah loves to tell us about FFA, but tell me how you got your start in FFA, Grant.
Yeah, so I'm from Mexico, Missouri, grew up, born and raised Audrain County, and my dad actually teaches diesel technology through the Career Center in Mexico. So I always grew up with the agriculture building and the agriculture classroom right across the hall. And I remember sitting with my dad. I was in 8th grade. We were filling out the course request form for my freshman year schedule. And Dad's like, hey, you've got an open spot. I think you should take Agriculture Science 1 and join FFA. Try it for a semester, a year. If you don't like it, you're not going to hurt my feelings. And once I started, I was hooked. I had a great mentor who was a senior when I was a freshman. She kind of took me under her wing and just kind of really showed me what FFA has for students and how we can benefit ourselves and benefit our communities. And since then, you know, the rest is history, I'd say so. So once I jumped in, I was just hooked.
Well, and you served as a state officer first, right?
Yeah, so I served as a state officer in 2021, 2022 when I was a freshman in college. So I've been going on about 7 years in the Blue Jacket.
Wow. Well, and we were getting to know you a little bit here during the break, and I didn't realize that for this office, you actually have to take a break from Mizzou. You're not in school right now.
No, so
what did you call it? A professional leave of absence?
Yes, a professional leave of absence is what the university is calling it. So I'm going to take a gap year to serve the National FFA organization, and I'll return in 2025 and graduate in May.
So tell us about that work. What are you doing over the next year?
So the National FFA organization is the nation's largest student-led youth organization with about 945,000 members across all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And then there's 6 national FFA officers, just like we have local officers at our chapter level, or maybe state or regional officers as well. And so in that organization and in this role, my teammates and I are going to get to travel across the country, meet with students in their home communities. Between the 6 of us, we'll visit all 50 state conventions. But first and foremost, we are the student voice for our national organization. So we serve on the board of directors, get to pass policy and make different varieties of decisions and help represent the student voice since we are kind of out in the field and report back to those board of directors who are adult and industry leaders within agricultural education. But other than that, we get to meet with business and industry leaders who are supporters and sponsors of National FFA. And then we also do a little bit of work at the local level, getting to meet chapters and go inside their schools and visit with them.
Well, and obviously to be one of 6 students chosen to represent 945,000 FFA students. Tell us about the interview process to become a national officer, because it seems really intense and it's several rounds and it's very long, right?
Oh, for sure. I definitely would say intense is the exact word to describe this process. It's about an 8-day interview process. After the candidacy for your state, so each state association can select up to 1 individual to represent their state at National FFA Convention. We had 35 candidates interviewed this year, and the process is going to encompass anything you might encounter as a National FFA officer. So we interview in front of 9 nominating committee members, which are all 9 students about my age, so about 2021. And they are going to interview us in a variety of simple interviews. So, you know, personal interview questions, one-on-one interviews with each of the nominating committee members, stand and deliver speech preparation, workshop facilitation in front of students, or even things like media interviews like we're doing right here that we might encompass with the media, and then AgISU discussions with industry individuals as well. So really a well-rounded experience to get to know not only the individual you are as a leader, but the representative you'll be for FFA agriculture and the education.
So what was it like finding out? Like, and how did you?
Oh, the video! I love the video.
It's so dramatic for no reason.
It's like they win a Grammy when they're announced. It's so fun every year to watch the national FFA officers be announced at national convention. There's usually lots of tears, too. It's so fun.
Yes, lots of tears for sure. I remember my state executive secretary coming up to me afterwards, and she's like, maybe when you retire this year, you won't be such an ugly crier. But they play like, the chair of the nominating committee comes out and he's like, we've given careful and deliberate consideration to all candidates running for national office. And like, they start playing like the infamous Chicago Bulls theme song. And like, that like is triggering for like FFA members across this country now, because they do it at national officer election, and a lot of states do it as well. So like, we all stand up as candidates, and like, we're standing in the audience, and like, we're waiting for like our name to hopefully be called, and they only pick 6. So it's like very nerve wracking. And for most of us, like, that could very well be our last time in official dress and at a national convention as an FFA member. So vying for one more year of experience in the organization can be a little bit challenging, a little bit nerve-wracking, and I definitely was feeling the tears in the moment for sure.
How many people ultimately stand up? It's interesting you said that. Everybody stands up. How many people stand up, and is it by spot? You do run by position, so you're the secretary. Does it you stand up with everybody else who wants that position?
So we interview as a group of 35, go through the whole process, and there's regions. So there's 4 regions in the United States that make up FFA: Eastern, Western, Southern, and Central. And there's one vice president on the team from each of those regions. So I'm not eligible for the Western region vice president, but I'm eligible for president and secretary, and so is everybody else. So technically you're eligible for half of the position. So you kind of are just waiting, and when they announce each position, if you're eligible or not. So I wasn't called for Central Region vice president, and they do vice presidents first, and I thought it was over. I was like, all right, pack my bags. I want to go home. Like, let's drive back to Missouri. But then like I held on just a little bit longer, and they called me for secretary.
That's amazing. Well, so you're going to spend your year with a national FFA, and then you're going to come back to Mizzou for a bit. What's your degree in? Like, what's next for you?
Yeah, so I am a senior at the University of Missouri studying agricultural education and leadership. And right now, the plan was to either get elected or graduate college. And so I'm putting a college on school for a little, or a pause on school for a little bit. But I'm going to graduate in May of 2025 with my degree program. And right now I'm really looking at going to grad school, getting a master's in either agricultural education or instructional design. I'm a huge fan of learning. I think it's really, really important that we recognize how everybody learns a little bit differently. And I want to kind of go into program and curriculum development and see how we can better engage learners in a variety of ways through instructional learning models.
Well, and one of the things that I love to try to educate folks about FFA is you don't have to come from a farming background to join FFA. So if there's any kiddos listening this morning, I did not come from any type of ag background. Growing up in Centralia, you're in a agricultural area, and I knew lots of folks who had farms, but I myself had no experience in those things. My best friend, who was 1 year older than me, my freshman year, dragged me to an FFA meeting and basically forced me to join, and I ended up falling in love with it. And there's so much more to the ag industry than just, row crop farming or raising livestock. And I'm really thankful to FFA for kind of opening my eyes to other things that are out there. And now I'm using my agriculture degree from Mizzou to push buttons on the radio.
In media. Well, I've seen that picture of you, Hannah, with that duck on a leash. And when so I've seen that picture. And I think that was something FFA related. But no, and I think, Grant, you mentioned public speaking. And I know the FFA chapter in Ashland, for example, is super involved with the chamber. So can you talk for those, and I've got a lot, I'm in my parent era. And so I know we've got a lot of parents listening. I don't know that I would necessarily push my kid into FFA because I don't have a farming background, and I would think maybe I'm not equipped to help them with that. But talk about those other things that folks in business can use that you've learned in FFA.
So I think what we need to remember first and foremost that FFA, yes, is rooted in agriculture and is an agricultural-based organization for youth, but our mode of transportation to get students leadership skills prepared for their career to make impact in their community is through agricultural education. So we could be doing this through anything. We could be doing it through health sciences. We could be doing it through culinary arts, but like agriculture is the motive that we've chosen for our organization. And so regardless if you have an agricultural background or not, joining an agricultural education class will, yes, not only get you knowledge to be an informed consumer and make those right decisions and become an advocate for agriculture, but joining FFA is going to prepare students to not only grow themselves as a leader, prepare them to be successful in any career that they choose in or outside of agriculture, but ultimately it just helps them be, I would like to say, a functioning member of society. And so FFA has We all have record books, so we keep records for all the projects
Oh
that we
my
have.
gosh.
So I'm sure
The
that
bane of my existence.
Oh yes, I'm sure I was never happy whenever it was record book day in class, but keeping our records has been something that's been really important to me. We have career development events and leadership development events that help students try on different hats. So if maybe they're wanting to pursue a career in agriculture. I know Hannah and I were talking earlier about the infamous dairy cattle judging contest that Mr. Scott Stone from Centralia loves so much.
Thank you for forcing me to do that, Mr. Stone.
And so it's a variety of experiences that get students involved, whether that's job interview skills, whether that's just simple public speaking, or even community service at the local level, engaging students at the local community. The organization makes such an impact on a student's lives. I think that we often omit that it's a little bit more than just an agriculture-based organization, because we're preparing students for a successful career and a successful role in society in and outside of agriculture, regardless of their interests or aspirations or connections to the agriculture industry.
And one of the unique things about FFA that not many other school extracurriculars can say is, I forget the exact word for it, but FFA can be a part of classroom curriculum. What's the word I'm looking for, Grant?
So the word is intracurricular. So I like to describe.
I was this close.
It's another big word, lots of syllables there, Hannah.
Yes, big word. But for those folks at home listening, I kind of like to describe FFA and agriculture education a little bit like Netflix. And so when you subscribe to Netflix, you don't just subscribe to one movie or one TV show. You subscribe to all of the Rolodex of movies and stuff that's in there. And the same goes for agricultural education. So there's about 3 circles that we focus students on, and that's classroom. So typical things like butts and seats, what are we learning in the instructional classroom or laboratory area with our agricultural educator. Then we have FFA, which is our leadership component of the organization, and that's mixed within the things we're learning in the classroom. And then our third component is our supervised agricultural experience programs, and every FFA member in the country has at least one SAE program. Or
My ducks.
Your ducks, for example. And that's a project that ties them to agriculture, and that can be working at a local veterinary clinic, raising their own livestock or own crops, or even having agri-science research or internship experiences like that help them prepare for a career.
So, obviously we have the FFA chapters that are in schools. There's a lot of kids that are homeschooled now. Can they participate in FFA? And if so, how do they go about doing that?
So homeschooling students, that's a bit more of a challenge when we look at FFA, because FFA is to be a member of FFA, you have to be enrolled in an agricultural education course. So in the state of Missouri, it's all kind of it's statewide. So I think right now what that looks like is students, if their local school district that they live in has an FFA program, they can attend classes at that school and work that out with the school district. If they do not have an FFA program, Missouri actually just launched this year their first online agriculture education program. It is called Launch FFA, and it is through Springfield. And so students can take agricultural education classes online and join an online cohort of students wanting to do experiences in the FFA program. But they'll compete in person for different competitions in the regional events in the Springfield area, regardless of what part of the state they live in.
Yeah, I know from personal experience, my kids come home and they're never talking about, long division or math, but they will tell me what they've grown and eaten in Learning Garden. And so it's been, they're still young, but it's been impactful, and I wouldn't be surprised if they take an interest and end up in FFA. So Grant, thanks so much for joining.
It will be the one time that I don't give you a hard time for it, because I give you grief for nerding out. I was slightly nerding out about FFA stuff with Grant Norfleet, so I will give you a pass on this one.
Thank you.
I've got a travel nightmare story for you, Stephanie, because I know how much you enjoy hearing those.
Other than the little kid that that got on the wrong plane.
Yeah, and as much as you fly, I want to make sure you're aware of things that could go wrong, because I'm sure you really appreciate thinking about that while you're, flying through the air at thousands of feet.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Russian passenger plane.
That may answer the question right there.
And this Russian passenger plane somehow just accidentally landed on a frozen river. They thought they were at their destination, and turns out they were sitting on top of a frozen river. So not exactly where they wanted to end up. I don't know, Stephanie, if you're flying over any rivers anytime soon.
An ocean.
Oh, well, okay. The ocean would be a little easier to identify, probably. But luckily, it went without incident for the most part. They were able to figure out their error and move the plane in time, but kind of scary. Find out you landed on a frozen river.
That's terrifying. I mean, what are these people doing? Don't the planes basically fly themselves at this point?
It's Russia. Come on. There was a couple of years ago, there was a plane that was going to Springfield Branson, which, that airport says Springfield Branson.
Yep.
And it landed in Branson instead.
Oopsie.
And I think it was like a Frontier plane or something like that. But it was a big plane. It was big enough. The airport there was big enough for the plane to land.
But not take off.
So they ended up having a stranded jet that they had to go do something.
Because that Springfield Branson airport's actually in Springfield.
Yeah.
Good news is the schools are out right now, and continuing into early this afternoon. It's going to taper off, but just give yourself some extra time. I did see a lot of crew members out this morning. People were driving pretty slow, but again, be very careful. There are some slick spots, and definitely on some, as Mark's absolutely right, some bridges as well. But definitely it's going to continue into the afternoon.
Well, and it's making me jealous of all the people I saw that were headed to Dallas this week. I saw a lot of people road tripping, and some of the best stuff I saw on social media yesterday was just pictures of all of the Tiger fans in town. There seemed to be a ton of Tiger fans in Dallas, and we will be talking with Fred Parry at 8:10. He is there at the Cotton Bowl. Anything you think we can expect tonight, Brian?
I'll be on the network tonight on the Central Bank Tiger Radio Network from Learfield, so I look forward to talking to everybody on KWS and across the state, some other states as well on the Mizzou broadcast. Two real big things that I'd say. Number one, Ohio State, Mark's spot on. They had a heartbreaking loss to Michigan, 30-24. But their backups, even these guys, a couple opt-outs, if you will, their backups, they could start at just about any program. And Devin Brown, I really am impressed with their quarterback. He is really, really good. Their defense gives up 11 points a game, second best in the country. But what they do, you're going to notice this tonight, folks. Watch the television. Don't watch the ball tonight. Watch the television and watch the Ohio State defense. They're going to run a 4-2. They're going to put those safeties right on the line. They do that all the time. They got lightning bolt speed. The issue for Mizzou, if they can get Cody Schrader to break that line, he can bust it. He has the ability to do it. But they're that confident in their tackling ability, Mark, they're going to stack the box. But they were lucky against Blake Corum that they were able to contain him. I would also point out one other thing. There was a coach back in 1976, the only Mizzou football coach to ever beat Ohio State. His name was Al Onofrio. I used to call him Uncle Al. I think most of the fans did as well. But that was maybe one of the biggest upsets ever. In 1975, when Mizzou beat Alabama at Alabama, was pretty.
There was a Notre Dame upset in there too.
78, yeah. Joe Montana. That's right. South Bend 3-0. But Onofrio was the Giant Slayer coach and a decorated World War II veteran. So I'll be thinking about him tonight. And his two sons, when he passed away, I think it was Mike and John. I know they lived here in Columbia. I don't know if they're still alive right now. They could be. They'd be getting up there in age. But definitely Uncle Al's on my mind today.
It should be a great game. It's Ohio State's one of those 2 or 3 teams in the country that can play SEC type of football.
Yes.
You remember last year they made it to the playoffs and they lost a last-minute game to Georgia. Georgia, who went on to beat TCU by, right, I don't know, by an arm and a leg. I mean, by like 50 points or something. So it's a really good team. It's a real challenge. Across the board, everybody they have could start at any school in the nation except for maybe Alabama and Georgia.
Absolutely.
It's that good a talent level.
That good a talent level. And Ryan Day, their coach, has been, people may not know this, but he recruits the state of Missouri. They've got a guy named Travion Henderson. I do expect a lot of these guys. Ohio State's website still says a lot of this is going to be game time decision. I do think you'll see some of their big guys play and their, but again, Mizzou's had a fantastic season. I think everybody's going to enjoy it. And Mark, you're spot on. The cost of those tickets,
unbelievable.
Goodness gracious.
Well, we saw folks, and we've been kind of covering year-end recaps, and I'm a sucker for these. I just love seeing what people Googled, what other people think the highlights of 2023 were, what the best movies were. I love a good list. And so I realized we have a data center or a data set in our possession in that we have the KWOS and the Eagle website. So I asked Hannah, I said, hey, can you check on those stats and let me know what were our like top stories? What were people thinking about? And some of them were really hilarious. You guys have an interesting set of what you're interested in. And so local stories, Hannah, do you remember like what the top story out of Jeff City was?
I don't remember the top one.
But one of the top ones?
One of the top ones was...
it involved chocolate milk.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
So there was a guy who crashed his car into, I believe it was a break time.
Yep.
Because he just wanted a little bit of chocolate milk.
And one of the reasons he got busted was because they went to this guy's house that they thought it might have been, and he still had chocolate milk in the backseat of his car that was still cool to the touch. And for Columbia, one of the bigger stories was when the Columbia
public schools took a bunch of students to a drag performance at the breakfast, and that was one of our top stories on the Eagle website this year, and of course stirred up a lot of controversy here in Columbia, and with city officials there tipping, if you recall, the drag queens in front of the students.
It was not just a local story that made national news, and the national news got a lot of the facts not quite correct. Some of the details, it just didn't. That's the problem when you're not here. We were here. We reported it accurately, and the local media, by and large, did as well. But, I mean, they had some things in the national media, quite frankly, wrong. But it involved a drag show. And the mayor was involved in that. Dr. Yearwood took enormous criticism. The Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, actually on this show called for Yearwood to be fired. He did.
It was a big deal.
Yeah,
also,
like that would ever happen at a Columbia school district, getting fired because of anything that was progressive.
And he, of course, still has his job.
Yeah.
Probably got a promotion and a raise on top of it.
And I think about around that same time, another thing that was a local story, but also obviously made national news, was the Chinese spy balloon, which flew right over mid-Missouri. Our Wake Up family member, Jennifer Bukowski, kind of went viral on Fox News because she got a really good photo of it over her home, and they aired it all over, and sometimes you'll still see it on Fox News. So a lot of really interesting local stories. Now, on the state level, Mark, what would you say are some of the top stories coming out of the state legislature, state politics?
Well, I mean, you got to think about I-70 being funded. I think that's the biggest story. That's the biggest story in the last few years, I think, from it's something I don't think we ever thought would get done. I mean, we all wanted it. I think we were all pessimistic about it. And
well, it's not done yet.
Thanks to the governor and to Senator Lincoln Huff. I mean, they managed to come up with a way to come up with $2.9 billion to do something that, maybe they were going to get 100 or 200 or 300 million here and there to get it done. And they got it done in one fell swoop. And, the last thing I saw, they expect within 5 years for that project to basically be done.
Yes, it's going to start here. I do agree with that. That had to be the biggest one. I also would add two other things. And that was very bipartisan. We should point out David Tyson Smith and a lot of Democrat, Doug Mann from Columbia, although the rest of the reps around mid-Missouri are all Republican, but in Columbia, several Democrats, and they did vote for that and join the governor there. I think the NIL bill signing ceremony, Mark, not quite as big as I-70, I know, but for Mizzou fans, it was a big deal. I was there the day the governor signed it at Faroe. I think that was a big deal. And I think the Senate blowing up, the Missouri Senate, blowing up's probably too strong a term, but just a meltdown, basically.
Dumpster fire.
Yeah, during the final week, where Bill Eigel basically, he didn't feel like he'd been treated right, and he talked and read out of books, and then Mike Moon read out of books. That was that really was a big deal, and I think Senator Eigel certainly mentioned he felt like he should have gotten his bills heard earlier, but we'll see what happens. But things don't, based on what Cindy O'Loughlin said yesterday on our show, not so sure things have been smoothed over. She kind of indicated she was kind of irked with some members of her caucus, although she didn't say any names.
She wasn't naming names yet, but those names are going to be flying really quickly as our legislative session is set to open in less than a week. Other things I think that are on the top of my list, obviously the transgender issues dominated the first part of the session, and I talked yesterday with Scott Faughn on the midweek update, which you can catch about that. And then as well, I think marijuana legalization. I think it's greatly outpaced the revenue that they thought they were going to see, and I think we're going to see that trend continue. The other thing that I think had statewide impact that was really big for Missouri this year was Kim Gardner's resignation. Mm-hmm. Anything else on your list, Mark?
No, I mean, I think, look, just the fact that we have incredibly active primaries already for basically every statewide office that's up has significantly contested primaries, and a real divide. Something I think this Freedom Caucus that's come out of the Senate actually has, and Stephanie probably gets more kudos for this than anybody because she called it early on. You're now seeing effectively a slate of statewide candidates that are running basically as a Freedom Caucus slate, most of whom have little to no name ID, but as a slate, that gives them a lot of power and an ability to change things. I mean, I think that's looking into 2024, but that's been a huge sea change that's just occurred in the last couple of months here in Missouri that will have impact for a long period of time.
And I would add, I was at the courthouse, the Boone County Courthouse, quite a bit for local sentencings, and I'm not sure, I can't really pick one case that would be bigger. They were all big. A lot of them were homicide cases, and some were guilty pleas, and some ended up going to trial. But the one that grabbed my attention the most was Bobby Dawson being sentenced, and I was in the courtroom that day. You talked, Stephanie, you know Judge Josh Devine.
Mm-hmm.
There were 3 spectators in the courtroom who were thrown out, ejected when I was at the sentencing. They were, you would not believe the language these people in the audience were using. I can't repeat it on the air. We'd be fined. It was horrendous. And then a guy on video was using foul language as well. It was horrible. He had to kick 3 people out of the courtroom. Chaotic sentencing. Judge Devine was so flustered, he told the audience, I was in there too, he said, if there's one more outburst, I'll clear the entire courtroom. But they actually had to escort people to their cars. And that barely got any. In fact, I was the only reporter in the courtroom. I don't know that anybody else even reported it. But I thought that was a big deal. That was a killing on Quail Drive. The guy maintained his innocence, said he didn't do it. But somebody behind me, a woman, said, yeah, you killed the kids' mother. So that was one that I'll never forget.
And we've had a lot of really high-profile trials, and of course, with what we've seen lately, there's some cold cases that potentially have some breakthroughs. So this next year, if we're talking about what we might predict or anticipate, I think we're going to see a lot more on that criminal front here in Mid-Mo.
And Gypsy Blanchard, that's a national story down in Springfield. You take a look at the Cincinnati Enquirer. I don't know if this has been reported in Missouri yet. Gypsy Blanchard said she's going to be at the Chiefs game on Sunday at Arrowhead, and she wants to meet Taylor Swift. That would be, if that happens, you can only imagine the media coverage that would get. But I don't know if Taylor Swift's people would.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
I don't think that is that booth or that box she sits in. Can the public get in there? I don't.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because that's where she wants to go.
Of course, so do I. Hey, Taylor, I'd like to sit in the box this weekend. Is that all I have to say, right? Okay,
you have to do some time and get paroled.
We've got Sam on the phone. Welcome to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Sam.
Well, good morning. Unless I missed it, you guys did not mention the biggest news story of 2023. Producer Hannah got married.
Oh,
there you go. Yeah.
Congratulations, Hannah.
And you guys are probably glad that I am not talking about wedding planning every 2 seconds now.
I'm sure folks enjoyed the wedding coverage, and we like to enjoy all stages of life. Thanks for calling in, Sam. That is a big deal. Of course, we've had a lot of fun on the show and a lot of
Best Dog Contest. That one takes place here in the States in California. We've also got a bird calling competition that the Homer Brewing Company puts on in Homer, Alaska. Never heard of that one. There's a United States Mullet Championship, which I hate with every fiber of my being.
I like a mullet. I think that's fun.
Of course you do,
I
because
figure
they're
coming
cringy.
from Centralia, you'd love mullets.
No! I take offense to that.
I would take Morgan Wallen with a mullet any day over the shaved head, whatever he's got now. He was cute with the mullet. It looks terrible
You
now.
had a whole day of mourning, I think, when Morgan Wallen cut off all his hair. I just am not a mullet fan. I think too many people try to pull it off, and only very few people can. There is a heavy metal knitting world championship in Finland, and literally they knit to the sounds of heavy metal. Yeah. The World Wife Carrying Championships, also in Finland. And I've actually seen videos of this one floating around on the web every year. And it's literally just to see who can carry their wife through an obstacle course the fastest. I feel like you could get humbled pretty quickly by that one. There's also World Gravy Wrestling Championships in England. And they literally wrestle in a kiddie pool full of Lancashire gravy.
That sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
Sounds like the old Jello wrestling days.
Yeah, like something a fraternity would do.
Yeah, so 10 of the weirdest competitions in the world.
I think it was in Stripes. They had Jello.
Well, and I am wishing you a very happy new year from all of us here at Wake Up Mid Missouri. Did I say Wake Up Columbia earlier?
Somebody did.
Somebody-
We got a text at 874-9390 saying that one of us said the wrong name.
Which means somebody owes the whole show a pizza.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to hear back on
Wow.
who this listener said it was because I totally missed it.
Brian, you should see Brian's face. He is saying not it immediately.
I would go even further. I didn't hear. I have the monitor on when I'm out even typing stories, and I haven't heard that at all. So,
Well, I think you were in the studio when we got the text, Brian, so it could
Okay.
be anyone.
okay, yeah. Well, if it is, then we're all having pizza. Yeah.
Well, we do have a big announcement on Tuesday.
Yes.
We hope you will join us at 7:10. Spoiler alert, we are not changing the name of the show. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, big news out yesterday. Despite, let's look at the latest polling. Nationally, Trump is plus 38. In some of the early states, I'm looking at plus 34 and plus 30. The Democrats are freaking out, and they decided the best way to beat Trump is not at the polls, but to just try to keep him off the ballot altogether. And yesterday, we got a decision from the Maine Secretary of State, Mark.
Yep, Maine kicking him off the ballot, saying that he participated in an insurrection and therefore is ineligible under the 14th Amendment. The Trump campaign's announced, I saw it this morning, they're going to appeal that. Obviously, they have to. I think I saw it's 13 states now that this is going on in. California, late last night, the Secretary of State of California said he would appear on the ballot. So it's going to be a hodgepodge.
And even if he is on the ballot in California, I can't imagine him winning that state. Although Mark and I are old enough to remember when California was not that all that long ago, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon came from California. It was a huge Republican state.
Reddest to red.
Yeah, I mean, it was Bob Hope, John Wayne. I mean, some big Doris Day, you name it. The Hollywood actors even were Republicans. But that's going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm sure.
It certainly is. So we will watch that continue to play out. But overshadowing the national news for folks in Missouri is the big bowl game today. And we are pleased to be joined by publisher emeritus of Inside Columbia magazine. He also has a show on 93.9 The Eagle on Saturday, the CEO Roundtable. Fred Parry is coming and joining us directly from Dallas. Welcome in, Fred.
Hey, good morning. Good to hear from you all and good to visit with you this morning. So it's a big day for the Tigers.
Yeah, so exciting. And I've got several friends who have made the trek down there over the past couple of days. And it seems like it's just a pipeline of tiger tails from Columbia, Missouri to Dallas. What are you experiencing?
Well, we drove in Wednesday night. We drove through Oklahoma. We stopped in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Proud to be an Okie from Muskogee.
Amen.
And we just were surprised. We stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, which makes us very smart. And the place was filled with Tiger fans in the middle of Oklahoma. So that was a good sign. But as we continued our trek to Dallas yesterday morning, just tons of Tiger tails. And, it's interesting because a lot of the bowl games will tell you that Missouri does not travel well. Historically, we have not traveled well for bowl games. But we are making a very impressive showing at the Cotton Bowl. It's amazing how many people from Mizzou are in Dallas today.
Fred, we appreciate you joining us live, and I hope you enjoy the game and have safe travels. I'm interested specifically in, and you probably haven't been there yet, but just this atmosphere, not just the game itself, a top 10 matchup, Mizzou and Ohio State, but the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. I mean, I see it on TV.
Yeah.
It's I can't imagine what that looks like in person. Just your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I have been to this stadium a couple times. The first time we went to the stadium was 10 years ago on January 3rd, which is coming up next week when the Tigers, I believe we played Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl that year. And we were here for the game, and we were lucky enough to get some really good seats, not too far from the field. But one of the things that stands out to me about this stadium is, one, it's an amazing entertainment complex, but is this Jumbotron, for lack of a better word, the screen. Even though we might have been in the 12th row watching the game, we found ourselves constantly staring at the Jumbotron because of the resolution and just the ability, just the vastness of this screen to be able to watch the game. And so it is really an amazing building. Of course, it is heavily sponsored. Every corporation in America seems to have a very strong presence in what they call the Jerry Dome, and but it's just a great venue to play in, and I think it's just, no matter what's happening, it seems like a pretty special event. My son and I went to a Promise Keepers rally there 2 summers ago, and it does not disappoint. It's worth the trip just to see that stadium.
Yes. So, Fred, I had the fortune to go to a couple of Cotton Bowls. Went to the one against Arkansas, which was in the original Cotton Bowl, which is kind of neat playing it outside. It's maybe different. Inside in 2013 against Oklahoma State. Maybe it's 2014 against Oklahoma State in the AT&T Stadium.
Right.
That's a crazy place. I'm curious. When I was down there were a lot of Mizzou events. There was even a parade one morning. There was like a Mizzou parade. Have you seen, the band, the Golden Girls, the fans out doing some of the events?
Yes, yesterday at the stadium there was a battle of the bands. So Marching Mizzou and Ohio State, were able to sort of square off in sort of a band competition. And then today they're opening up the Texas Rangers Stadium. The Mizzou Alumni Association is having a kind of a pregame tailgate before the Cotton Bowl. And my guess is that you'll see thousands of Missouri fans at that event today as well. And that's open to Mizzou alumni. And the Ranger Stadium is of course, they're the world champion, reigning world champions right now, the Texas Rangers. And so you'll see a lot of people today, and that's pretty close to the stadium. They say it's within walking distance. I'm not quite sure I believe that, but
Texas
anyway,
walking distance.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Get an Uber, Fred.
I will. So the Alumni Association and Mizzou Nation really seems to be very well coordinated and very present. And I will tell you, we went out last night to some of the restaurants and bars in Dallas. And of course, Dallas is a spectacular city itself. The skyline is just dotted with construction cranes. There's a lot of very healthy economic activity here, but just a very vibrant city. But, all we saw was Mizzou fans. Every 5 minutes somebody would be shouting M-I-Z, and because if you were wearing your Mizzou gear, you were greeted that way. And but I will tell you, we only saw a handful of Ohio State fans. So maybe it'll be different in the stadium tonight, but it looks like Mizzou has a very strong presence.
Now, you've spent a long time not only talking with Columbia business owners and Mid-Missouri business owners on your show, but just and with the magazine, keeping an eye on the economic drivers here in Mid-Missouri. Talk about the impact of the type of season Mizzou has had, and all of the national stage attention they've been getting this season on our Mid-Missouri community.
Our community sort of lives and dies by a healthy university, and I think that probably the number one economic impact is just how much easier it is for the University of Missouri to recruit new students when you have sort of this top 10 presence and you are participating in an event like the Cotton Bowl. So number one, just increasing student enrollment is huge. And you guys know that we're facing kind of a demographic cliff in Columbia. In 2007 and 2008, we saw a dramatic decrease in birth rate, and so that really could impact the university by as much as 4,000 or 5,000 students just because of demographics. And so, but then you have what happens when the stadium is sold out 5 or 6 games in a row, and restaurants, of course, and hotels benefit from that, but there just seems to be a much brighter perspective. People are more enthusiastic, more optimistic. And it's all because of Mizzou football, and which is, kind of strange, but it just really lifts everybody up. And I think that we feel more confident about our future when we have a strong Missouri football team. And that definitely shows up on the bottom line for a lot of local businesses. And so it makes a difference. There's no question about it.
And I would just add one thing. The money has changed. Fred talks a lot about the enrollment it has, but the money has changed. And I'm talking about big-time money for the Mizzou will get a paycheck for just appearing in this game. So will the conference as well. And they'll get part of that pool, if you will. But if Mizzou ends up upsetting Ohio State tonight, it would be an upset. I assume ESPN is going to show some clips towards the end. They probably have them ready of when Mizzou upset them in 1976. And we talked about Al Onofrio, but they had a Hall of Fame coach on the other side, Woody Hayes. He, basically, and I consider myself very religious. This guy was like a god. Literally in the state of Ohio, the most that guy ever made was $50,000 a year. Woody Hayes. If he were the coach today, they'd probably be paying him $20 million. I don't know. And of course, he got fired because he punched a player after. He was
opposing player on the field
during at the Gator Bowl in 1978.
That would have been a fine. Yikes.
But how many coaches have had the president of the United States speak at their funeral? They did. Most that guy ever made $50,000, but he'll always be known for punching Charlie Bauman.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. They have a rich tradition. There's no doubt. But I think Mizzou's going to come out on top. There's just a lot of things that are in our favor, and everybody seems to be very pumped.
Yeah, and not only the economic impact, throughout the season, but even just tonight. I know there are a lot of folks in Dallas, but there's going to be a lot of folks packing our restaurants and bars and establishments, not only in Columbia, but around mid-Missouri. And I think that impact is meaningful and matters. And so we are wishing Mizzou all the best, and we'll be cheering on from home and wish you a fun day today, a Tigers win, and safe travels back home.
All right, guys. MIZ.
ZOU.
Yeah.
All right, up next, we are going to have the Morning Bell, this time with a twist that Mark Ellinger can
Look, today's the last day of the market. We got to be on time once, right? It's going to open in just a few minutes. Futures they're kind of mixed at the moment. Dow's just about flat. S&P and NASDAQ are just a slight bit down. Yesterday, it set a record. If the Dow's up today, it will be a year-ending record in the Dow, which is actually really rare. It does not happen. Most of the times, last day of the year is not a new record.
Really?
So we'll see what happens.
I'm
lots of
looking,
positive and negative out there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't wanted to check my investment accounts in a long time, and I'm actually looking forward to at the end of this quarter checking in because I think it'll actually be good news.
It's been a really good year. Particularly if you've been in tech stocks, it's been a really, really good year in tech stocks. They have just gone through the roof, and chip manufacturers are now one of the hottest sectors. NVIDIA, yep. So it's pretty exciting. There's lots of interesting stuff out there. Apple, you touched on it earlier. The Apple Watch is now back out on the market because the court has enjoined it. But the reality is it's probably going to come off the market again and go back on the market because all the technology that's in it is really one of the big factors out there that's hurting Apple right now because they want the perfect watch for all the tracking stuff. And there's all these small startups that have created a lot of these devices that are being kind of adopted by Apple, and there's going to be more litigation. So watch out for that. You may not, in the long run.
Watch out for that.
I'm working on it here. Hey, in a shout out to Mizzou being down in Dallas, Wall Street, now the largest financial hub in the country after New York City. Dallas.
Really?
Just past Chicago and LA this year. More and more major trading houses are moving campuses to Dallas. Looks like it will continue going on. Just this last year, 3 of the largest banks in New York moved campuses into Dallas. Shows the effect of red state economics versus blue state economics.
And all that oil money.
But it's Chicago. Really Chicago and LA are train wrecks in states that are train wrecks, and Texas and Dallas are both booming.
And I think the Alumni Association for Mizzou was saying Mizzou sends an enormous amount of graduates down to Dallas.
It's I believe that after Kansas City and St. Louis, or St. Louis and Kansas City, Dallas is the next largest repository of Mizzou alumni. Even years ago, going down there, it's amazing. The bars and restaurants, even when there's not a big game going, the fact that there are Mizzou fans everywhere down there, it's really pretty cool.
All right, and you're telling me I can't use the incognito
Well, that's
search?
what I was going to get to here. Yeah,
I didn't
running
give you
out
much
of time. So people may know that Google Chrome has an incognito button. You're supposed to be able to click on it. You're able to search, and nobody's supposed to be able to know what you're searching. It's basically supposed to be a private search. Well, nobody but Google knew what you were searching because they were, of course, tracking all your searches, even though they told you they were not. They've been sued. That case was going to go to trial. In fact, that trial was getting ready to start. Apparently, they have reached a settlement. They're going to pay $5 billion. They're going to disable some of the tracking features on their software, but they're going to continue to track without tagging it to individuals, if you actually believe that. Don't worry, you're not getting a check in the mail. $5 billion is not going to go very far.
products and services. So they're hawking, a lot of these people on social media are like, what was the alarm clock that the one gal said? The Hatch
alarm clock.
But somebody mentioned Notion, which is a favorite app that I like to use. Mark uses it, but some people have to kind of be talked into it. But,
is that Mark?
Well, I think
only initially. I agree. It's a very beneficial app. I would sing its praises.
And we use it now here on the show too. It helps us stay all on the same page. But I've really enjoyed, because some of the things are big things. A lot of them are free, and some of it are just like people who've changed their behavior a little bit. So we asked that question on our Wake Up page earlier this week, and we'll be reading some of your comments there. You can always text us. Is there one or two things that made your life better in 2023? Share with a class so we can all have a better life in 2024. You can text us at 573-874-9390. Now, I know, Hannah, why are you giggling?
I was going to say, can I share my favorite one?
Okay, sure.
A listener by the name of Brandon commented and said, my wife.
Very sweet. Hannah got married this year and has had a very good 2023. Well, I know one thing that a lot of people are saying that probably we are going to do winners and losers. We're going to do it at 8:50. So text us your local winners and losers, 573-874-9390. Give us your nominations. Brian wants to go now, though.
Well, I'm going to need, because John Marsh is out, so I just have one point I want to make on the winners and losers. I'm going to be on KWS and the Eagle today on news. Just want to thank the healthcare people here in mid-Missouri. I've got some doctors and dentists in Jefferson City and in Columbia taking really good care of me, and I really do appreciate that. I nominate them, the doctors and nurses, very grateful to them. And one more person I want to nominate. His name is Keith Sampson. He's retired at Learfield. I am celebrating tonight on the Cotton Bowl the end of my 25th season as a scoreboard host at Learfield Communications. And a guy named Keith Sampson gave me my first opportunity back in 1999. To put that in perspective, Bill Clinton was in the White House. Mel Carnahan was governor. And that kind of puts it. Joe Paterno was at Penn State. I could go on. I mean, that's how long ago it was. But he gave me that opportunity. I'm very, very grateful. 25 years. I've got a couple bowl games this weekend. I've only missed 2 games in 25 years. I had laryngitis my first year. I tried to go on and they wouldn't let me in the 1999. And I missed in 2002 the Mizzou-Oklahoma game where they had a fake field goal to win the game. My sister got married and I still wanted to do the scoreboard, but I was at the wedding. But Keith Sampson, thank you.
Well, and congratulations, Brian. That's amazing.
Wow.
Thank you.
And you can catch.
I started when I was 6.
Well, and you can catch the coverage tonight. Pregame starts at 5 o'clock on KWOS, so we hope you will stick with us. Of course, we are also inviting you to a big announcement that we're doing here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri at 7:10 on Tuesday morning, so join us. Now, one thing I think that's on a lot of people's list this year that they started using this year and they'd say that makes their life better is Chat GPT. But could it be threatened? And I am just fascinated by this new lawsuit. The New York Times has sued OpenAI, which is the company that runs ChatGPT, and Microsoft. Now, I even forget what Microsoft's version of ChatGPT is.
Microsoft owns ChatGPT, or a significant portion of it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But don't they have their own? Because Twitter has Grok or something.
Grok.
I mean, everyone kind of has their own little.
Microsoft is going all in with ChatGPT.
That's right. Yep. Okay, and there's some others out there, but right now we're just looking at OpenAI and Microsoft. And then essentially, the New York Times is saying you are scraping or web crawling all of our data and using and putting it into your formula, and we think that's wrong, and it's copyright infringement, and we want a whole bunch of damages, and we also want we want you to stop doing it. Plus, we want all of our stuff back out of your data set. How's that going to go?
That's not going to go well I don't think that's going to go well for the Times. I don't think they're going to get their stuff out of the data set. That's impossible. Maybe they'll get some kind of protections on going forward basis for generative AI. In other words, things that come out, the output of AI, whether that's citations or some type of filter on it. It's only going to apply in the U.S., not going to apply anywhere else. If you want to know the best indication of what people think about this, look at the stock market. Microsoft just keeps going up. It's already up. It's up 0.3 of a point already this morning. And trading opened, 8 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. So I don't think anybody's taking this as a really serious. This is going to be a death throes of AI. It may have some impact upon news. It may have some impact upon the edges of AI. And Microsoft may just decide we'll just write the New York Times a check. Maybe they'll just buy the New York Times and that'll shut them up.
Stephanie helped me out with a chat GPT use this week. I had a busy week this week, and I was asked by a member of management for a strategy on something that we were working on, like a step-by-step what I was going to do. And I was a little stressed about how I was going to have time to do that before my meeting with this person. And Stephanie goes, just type it into ChatGPT. And it came up with 3 pages worth of a strategy. Now, I did fess up to my boss very quickly on what it was, but we had a good laugh about that.
But you and I both, after reading the plan, we were like, it was actually
It wasn't bad.
pretty good.
I could have used about 3/4 of it and not had any issues.
I guess my only concern, I mean, and I know that's probably the times and everything, the time we're in, but I do have concerns about this AI and it, being used in a bad way. And I don't know the particulars. It got a lot of coverage, but a lady that works for I don't know if she still does, NAACP leader in Chicago, African-American woman, was criticizing the migrant crisis and very critical. And a video came out, and at least according to news accounts, she said that somehow they doctored her comments about AI. I don't know if that's the case. Have you heard about that?
I don't think I have.
How is that prevented though? If let's say someone took a video of whoever, President Biden or whoever the president is, and had him saying something, but he didn't say it. I mean, how are we going to know that?
It's not prevented, and I know there's been some talk about, putting a watermark or something on there, the government stepping in and somehow requiring someone to disclose, like, this has been altered or we used AI to generate whatever it might be. But Mark brought up a really good point earlier with the lawsuit, and I think when we talk about regulating AI, the lawsuit only affects AI as it exists in the U.S., and if the U.S. starts regulating it and requiring that, nothing requires the folks in China who are generating these images to do that. So it's a tough spot.
We're fighting. I mean, we need to. I hate to be the bummer here. We're fighting a war on a global basis over technology, and there's 2 people that are competing in the war, and it's the United States and it's China. Yep. And anything we do that harms our ability to get ahead in that is going to ultimately benefit them. Now, this is ChatGPT. I mean, we also ought to take it back a step. This isn't global AI. This isn't the really deep things that are being used for national defense. Even a lot of what you're talking about, Brian, with video and altering. This is ChatGPT. Okay. This is Hannah asking the question into ChatGPT and getting an answer. Okay. This is a little different. But I promise you that we will see faked videos this election. Yeah. We will see faked audio this election. We've seen it in the past. It's just not really great quality. The quality is going to get better. The best thing you can ever do is the first time you see something pop up in social media, you should be a skeptic.
Yep, that's right.
If you're not a skeptic, then you're a sucker. And I don't mean that in a bad sense, but be a skeptic. Go to other places. Look at a couple of sources.
That's right.
If you see something that kind of shocks you and you go, boy, I can't believe that, the odds are actually pretty good that it's not actually believable.
And it's called Trust But Verify.
Yep.
Ronald Wilson Reagan said that. And we saw that in the Chiefs game. You guys know that the media got that wrong about that Chiefs, that Raiders player supposedly taking a ball, going to give the kid a ball, and then he apparently was going to be the Grinch, didn't take the ball. He said that was not the case, that there was a guy trying to take the ball behind him, and the mother, who's a Chiefs fan, backed the player up. But the media accounts on Sunday made that guy look like just a scum. Basically,
the little kid at the Chiefs game that had red and black paint on his face, and somebody took a picture of him and got the side and then put it out as the kid was a racist. I mean,
who's half Indian.
And those are actually like actual encounters. I mean, that was a real photo, but people get it wrong. But I mean, take that times, multiplied times 1,000 when people can suddenly fake things, right? I mean, it's going to be a.
But like I said, things are fake now. We just don't appreciate how much stuff's already faked as it is. If you're watching Instagram or TikTok, there's a substantive percentage. I've seen different numbers bounce around out there between about 20 and 60%. Everybody's got their own take on it, are all fake.
And the filters, man, the things they can do with a filter. I certainly appreciate it at times, but just know that what you're looking at is probably not real life. Well, other folks are chiming in on our Facebook page about things that have made your life better. Hannah, did you add anything to this list yet?
I don't think I've added anything on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page, but I have been thinking about this over the last several days because we have been talking about it a lot this week. And besides the obvious, which of course would be my husband, still getting used to saying that word. Having a husband is a lot different than having a fiance. I would have to say I got a new car this year. That's made my life a little bit better. I've been focusing on my health a little bit more this year, and that's been nice. I am feeling the difference in that. And professionally, I've made some gains this year. And that's also kind of, it's better to my headspace a little bit, if that makes sense. But I'm looking forward to 2024.
Certainly. And I saw on the Facebook page, a lot of folks said that, they'd implemented new health regimen. Robert said he had weight loss surgery and that's really been helping him. But then I liked the contrast because Rob said the thing that's made his life better is bacon.
Period.
So a lot of folks are chiming in. We encourage you to as well. Mary says she got a new grandson. And I know, Hannah, you've had several new littles in your family life as of late.
I had a niece and a nephew born this year, so for sure.
And so a lot about families. Trey says dogs. Former Representative Sarah Walsh says reading her Bible has really strengthened her year and been a game changer for her. We even got some pictures of dogs. So a lot of good suggestions if you're looking for upping your game in 2024.
And on a less mushy-feely note, Laura says that she got an under-the-cabinet jar opener.
Oh,
I think I've seen these. They stick to the bottom of your upper cabinets. And so when you need to open a jar, you just go over there and you slide the lid in the holster, give it a twist, and it pops off. So I think that's probably pretty handy.
I think everyone needs that in their kitchen. That's like a bottle opener on steroids right there.
That is a really good hack. Okay, we are going to be doing winners and losers of the week up next on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And thanks for all of you for chiming in, wishing us All right, Mark, who you got for winners and losers?
Well, the winner's easy. Mizzou. I mean, I think we all say that. I mean, regardless of what happens in the game, which I think they will win, I'll even go out and put a score up there. I'll say the final score will be 41-27.
Ooh.
There you go.
High-scoring game.
High-scoring game.
You got money on that?
No.
You gonna bet?
I don't bet on sports. I don't bet on it. I don't gamble or bet. It's one of those great things. But I think, look, the fact that we're in the Cotton Bowl, the fact that we're the number 9 team in the country, when expectation this year was so low, I think Mizzou's for sure a winner, and I think Coach Drinkwitz deserves a big credit for that. Moon Choi deserves a lot of credit. Desiree Francois Reed deserves a big credit. They've just done a magnificent job this year turning the program around, and kudos to them. So I would say they are hands down the winner.
Agree.
The loser?
Yeah.
How about to go to another academic, How about the University of Wisconsin lacrosse? The chancellor got fired after the discovery of his porn videos that he was doing with his wife, doing porn cooking channels on. Now, go figure that one out.
A university chancellor?
In the kitchen doing porn.
That sounds dangerous.
Doing cooking videos. Needless to say, the University of Wisconsin is not for that, or at least they're not for fun, apparently, in the kitchen. And they have now kicked him out. So he's the loser of the week for sure.
On that related note, Brad had chimed in earlier that said one of the top stories of the year should have been the St. Clair teacher who got caught having an OnlyFans. He said that it was even featured basically on an episode of South Park.
That's when you know you've made the big time right there.
Apparently. Okay, on some cleaner and lighter on a lighter note here, I really am enjoying, I'm going to nominate the governor and the first lady as winners of the week. They are reviving Missouri's military ball tradition. Now, I don't think I was aware of this. Now, they've done it intermittently over the years, but essentially the military ball, they would always have it on New Year's, and it was known as the New Year's Military Reception. It started in 1871. It was held annually until 1926. Since then, it's only been off and on, but they're having it again this weekend.
You know, another thing I wonder if he'll bring back is giving away the honorary colonels and captains in the Missouri Navy and colonels in the Missouri Army. My mom years ago, I think Kit Bond gave her an honorary colonel in the Missouri Army. Which, of course, doesn't exist, needless to say. It's pretty cool. I wonder if they all get to go to these things, too.
We'll see. I'm hoping for a recap after the event. And then also, winner of the week, our Attorney General announces a huge settlement, $700 million settlement with Google. Now, we talked about this other Google lawsuit about going incognito, that they're scraping your data, but this had nothing to do with this. This had something to do with something else, right?
This was something different. This had to do with the Google Play Store and anti-competitive behavior in the Google Play Store. Bad week for Google. $700 million to all these AGs, and then $5 billion for incognito mode. But their stock just keeps going because everybody wants Google.
It's been a good year for the market. Hannah, you got any winners and losers?
Well, since I nerded out so hard earlier,
yes.
I'm going to have to nominate FFA National Secretary Grant Norfleet for winner of the week. We had him in studio at 7:10 this morning, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from our interview with him on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. And it just warms my heart to see young people getting so excited about agriculture, or nerding out, as Stephanie would say. And I enjoyed having him in studio. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, just an impressive young man. I mean, well-spoken. I mean, just a great presence. And just taking a year off to travel the country to meet with and inspire other